Topic is data flows and using Power Query to migrate data. And so I had a question about this. I've got this data migration I've been working on for a client, and it's just kind of like, gosh, we have to do the same steps over and over and over. And that's not cool. So, is there a way to kind of simplify that? And so I was just looking um, at this capability, and I was directed to look at data flows by the team, and so I I threw this together, and it's a decent little proof of concept, and I just want to walk you through what it is. So when you go to make.powerapps.com, you see
Are you sharing your
section
screen?
under.
Yeah, we're not seeing your
You
screen.
don't see the screen. I knew there was one thing I missed.
I definitely have Hollywood Squares mode on.
Yeah, I'm like, this is going to be a Brady Bunch presentation video.
I see it now. I
Sorry.
see it now.
All right. Yep, it's there.
All right. So if you go to make.powerapps.com, you see the this data flows section underneath data, and you can create a new data flow. And so we're just gonna run through one here. So this is going to be an Excel test data flow, and I'm not going to create the whole thing. I'm going to show you the one that I built, but just to give you how to get started. One important thing to note is that it is expecting your spreadsheet to be in OneDrive. So do put it there. So you can do essentially a spreadsheet data import without and get some flexibility on column naming and mapping and things like that. So I thought that was super cool. Essentially, you're going to grab your spreadsheet and this is what you're going to use. One of the cool things about this is that spreadsheet can be live. So I'm just going to show you what I have. I'm using this data flow test contact spreadsheet that looks like this. And so all I have in it is just to do a contact import. All I have is first and last names, and I wanted to make sure that I could keep track of who I imported for this, so they all start with the X. Makes it easier to find them. And that gets us to actually building this data flow. So this is what it looks like, and so after you walk through that, okay, what spreadsheet do you want to use as a data source and where is it? It'll open you up to Power Query, and inside Power Query, you've got a few different things you can do. Now, I think that we could benefit quite a bit from training from the Power BI team on this, because I think they use this tool all the time. But something that I wanted to do, if you look at my spreadsheet, you see that the source here is not capitalized. The first and last names are not capitalized. So I came in here and I did a transform, and the first transform was to capitalize each word, and you can see that it did that. And I told it that I have headers, and so here's my data source. One of the features that you can add columns of data. The transform capabilities inside Power Query are really strong. So that was cool. Then you get a readout or a kind of a log of all the steps that you applied, and it can run through these steps every time with this spreadsheet. So we're going to go next. So I told it, hey, I want you to map this to the contact table name, and I want you to map column to column. If I go down and can find first name here, we should see that is mapped. So first name and last name are mapped just like this. And then I checked this box. Now, something really interesting happened, and I'll tell you what that is in maybe in a second. But remember this checkbox here. So when you set this up, there's a frequency. It'll come in and refresh. So it essentially reads from that spreadsheet on a periodic basis if you set it up that way. So mine's set up to read it every 30 minutes, and you can tell it specific times to do it as well. But if you set this up to refresh automatically, it's going to go out, look at that spreadsheet, and bring in the data. Well, what I noticed was that every 30 minutes I was getting a copy of all of all those contact names in my list. So checking that checkbox prevented the duplication. So it somehow tags those with, have we done this before, some reference ID, so that it doesn't happen. So it doesn't duplicate those, put the entire spreadsheet in as if it's all fresh. So what I ended up with after publishing was this job that sits in here in data flows, and you can see, much like a Power BI spreadsheet with its refreshes, it's keeping track of refresh dates and times, and it just continuously refreshes. So what would happen here is if I added Charles here, I have no idea
You got
what
a question?
how do you spell de Gaulle?
Yeah, a couple. One, I assume it would work with corporate OneDrive. You wouldn't necessarily have to use a personal OneDrive.
I think so. When I looked at it, it doesn't give me a choice of which OneDrive, so it's looking in my OneDrive.
Okay.
But we can go and look at that real quick if you want. But yeah, it doesn't really give you a choice. It's like, hey, okay, we're gonna look in your OneDrive. So
Probably grab from SharePoint too, I'd imagine.
And I had another question, but I don't remember it now.
that makes
Can
me
you-
feel really bad.
Can you map to multiple tables/entities at once from one spreadsheet?
I don't think so. So
Okay.
you can probably have as many spreadsheets as you want and set up your jobs to run, at the right timing, but it's going to run one spreadsheet to one table, I believe.
Okay.
So when we when we look at this data, this is saved, right? Let's go and look at Smitty's question. This is all it gives you. So I don't think there's a way to change what OneDrive you're looking at, or even a way to look at SharePoint. I don't see the option. So immediately when this runs, we should see our data come in fresh into that table, into the contact table there. So this is pretty cool. It's taking care of the data transformation for you, and it's handling all the updates that you make to that file on a periodic basis. Very cool for things like, hey, I just wrote this flow. When I get when someone hits a web page and it goes to it sends an email, and in Flow, I'm extracting it and dropping that into a spreadsheet, or you're using probably, I don't know, Google Sheets, and somehow taking survey results from Google and shoving them into CRM with a flow this way, or into a spreadsheet, and having this handle that import into Dynamics. It's pretty cool capability. So that's the feature. I don't have a whole lot more to show you. I'm gonna jump over to the environment just to see if I can see the that update here. But for some reason, my environment's disappeared. Sorry, what?
1
Can you
minute
set
warning.
the GUIDs as well?
Alicia, please go ahead.
Can you set the GUIDs as well? Do you know?
I don't believe so, but
No.
I haven't checked. You may be able to map a GUID, but I don't know. Importing GUIDs, that could be kind of cool. Okay, so I don't have it here yet, but I expect that on the next organic refresh, it'll push it in. Anyway, there you go, guys. Any other questions?
That's cool. I like it.
Okay.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Okay. Who's next, Marad? Kevin?
Kevin, yep.
All right, Kevin. Knock our socks out.
So we ran into an issue. So we wanted to kind of make things as smooth and streamlined as possible. They have a lot of automated emails going out, but one of our big issues is we need automated emails going out in over 100 different languages. So we kind of put together a little dynamic templating for them. And so on the language record, we have all these different fields for each of their automated emails. And you can see that this is just for English. They're going to come in and have all these translated by their translators, and they could come in and just copy paste here into these fields. And one of the things we gave them was the opportunity to kind of add some dynamic content into these emails as well. And so if I go, these are all being sent out through Power Automate. So this is kind of the invitation to their portal. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different variables of dynamic content here that we kind of put them inside of curly braces. And when I come here into Power Automate, a lot of variables we're adding, and these are essentially just the strings for all of the dynamic content in the curly braces. And we're going to use these later on when we use the replace function. Can you see that if I hover over it? Can you see the full function?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it doesn't show up on Teams. So the replace function has 3 arguments. The first argument is just the string that you're going to search through. So we have the email body here. So that is this field right here. Oop. This field right here that they've typed out. So it's going to search through this field. The second argument is going to be the string that it's going to find inside of the first argument. So the string we're looking for is these variable names in curly brackets. So for example, it's going to search through this whole body. It's going to find the string interpreter first name in curly brackets, and then it's going to replace it with the third argument, which in this case is the email address of their associated language representative for their language. So we're actually looking right here at this this variable here, language rep email. And so we go through for each of these variables, each of these kind of dynamic content here, search for the appropriate kind of field, which this is going to actually look at an email on a contact record that is associated to Callie Ray Levitt. She's the language representative for English. It's going to find her email and replace it here inside of the email body. And then we create the email message, send it by calling the send email workflow, and do a few other things here, portal related. And you can kind of see the finished product here with some of these variables. So we found my first name. We found the language I was translating in. We found my language representative's name was Callie Ray, her email right here, and then a dynamic link to the portal that includes their encoded invitation code into the portal, so that when they click in here, they should, unless my cache has kept me logged in. well, this will go ahead and redeem their invitation. So we've got their invitation code here, and they can redeem that invitation into the portal, which is again dynamic. Their portal invitation code is kept on the contact record that we've got there. And so we've got a lot of different templates, a lot of different variables for them to go through, but essentially it's just copy pasting in here in all their translated languages with some kind of dynamic lookups into other records to so they can manage essentially inside of CRM a lot of their emails and their email sends and all the different languages as their language reps are changing, as their interpreters are changing, and so on. And that's about it. I didn't look to see if there were any hands raised.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, please, Mr. Post.
Previously, hey, how's it going? Good job. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
This looks awesome. Previously, I used to use email templates for this kind of stuff. Is that something that you're not supposed to do anymore, or did you prefer to do it this way because you needed more variables from like different places, or what? Was email templates thought of as an idea for this?
We did think of email templates. We ran into a couple issues. The first one was this portal link was getting it to be dynamic and kind of running the HTML inside of the email templates. Brandon was having a hard time with that, so we kind of went. It was easier out of flow with this rich text editor. The other thing is most of these emails as well are on timers. They're here somewhere. Maybe they're not, but they're on 3-day and 7-day timers, so that if the response condition isn't met after 3 days, it's going to be ran again. And then after 7 days, it's going to be ran again. So Power Automate was kind of a clear choice there as well.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
No more hands? All right.
All right.
And
Thank you,
and
Kevin.
thank you, Callie, for some extensive testing of this.
Yay, Callie.
Extensive.
Awesome.
Extensive.
Callie, you want to go next?
So for BYUI, I need to share my screen. They wanted to be able to have basically a lookup within a lookup. So here on this course form, if I were to create a new course, this accounting basics course, and I put it in the accounting department, it looks up the college and the university that it's coming from, this department. And Colby kind of came to me with the issue of this lookup within a lookup and kind of tasks me with finding out how to do it. And what I found was the form component control in Dynamics. So first, what I had to do was set up in the college entity. I had to set up a quick view form that has the university look up on there, and then set the field as read only, and then go into the department and create the college field, and then have the quick find as a control in the form. And then once that is created, you can go to your main form. Oh, I'm going to go into classic. And here I have my department. And then above this, I have another one that says department, because you have to put in a field to be able to use this control. So I just use department again. And then you're going to add a control. So choose the form component. And here in forms, you'll just, I think this string is just something I found online, but I mean, those of you who are code savvy probably know what it actually means. However, right here, it's basically just you put in the entity name. So we've got department, and then we've got the form ID from the URL. So that part's pretty easy. And then we'll just set that and turn off the text box control and save and publish, and voila, you have your little double lookup there. There might be an easier way to do this, but as far as I know, this is Callie's way. So there you go.
Any questions?
That's
Very cool.
pretty cool.
You got a pretty cool from Logan. All right,
So,
awesome.
I have a question. Sorry, I have a question.
Oh,
With-
Jeff, we already applauded.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. You can ask your question.
So, like, are they supposed to be able to choose the second lookup, or they just want to see the other related record?
They just want to be able to see the related records, and that's why I set it to read only on these fields. But what I read online said that you could also make this like an editable sort of function. But I personally didn't need that.
Okay. Thank you.
So which one's driving the action here?
The department field. So here, I think accounting is the only one that's also hooked up to a college and department. Yeah, so this one isn't
Okay,
hooked up. However, accounting is, so
okay.
that's just the one
perfect.
I'm using. But
Great, thank you.
Scott, you're really faint.
Sorry. Callie, is that storing those values on the course record, or is it display only?
that's a great question. I believe it's storing them as far as Colby's told me. So
So if you go and look at that record, there's a field for college and a field for university, and they would be populated.
oh,
It's
That's what I-
it's
that's my
fields from the
question.
department.
I actually have not looked at that. Yeah.
Right. Well, just because I just had someone ask me to do something similar to this, but they want the value stored on the record, not just a view. And that's why
Gotcha.
I told them JavaScript, but if this would work, that would maybe be even cooler. I'll follow up with you later.
Yeah, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Job, Callie. Job.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Derek and then Josh want to go?
Yeah.
Yes.
Take it away already. All right, so we did this for quoting out of CRM. They needed kind of a way to group their quote products, change pricing, and do all sorts of stuff on the quote products before converting that to an order, and then they're integrating that to their separate system. So the out of the box quote grid wasn't going to work. So we created this custom one for them. So they're all just quote products, and then on the quote we have these quote groups. So it's mostly just to configure pricing. So we got these products are in these groups, and then they've got their different pricing calculations here. They got a multiplier and the profit factor, and eventually gets us to a total. So we don't have this all done yet, but what they can do is they can just drag and drop these products between the groups, get them how they want them. You can drag the groups up too, because they wanted to be able to reorder the groups. You can multi-select, so I can take both of those and them, maybe. You will be able to once it's working. And you can, most of it's going to be editable. It's not editable right now, but one thing we can do is we can change our multiplier here, and that'll roll down to all the products in the group, and then you calculate their pricing. We also did custom pricing for this, so we turned off the default price calculations. So we can use their multiplier and profit factor fields to calculate the pricing. So that's all done in a plugin if we ever need that.
Hey, Derek, what's this? What's the underlying technology here? What did you write this in?
This is React using Fluent UI components. So it's what Microsoft recommends for anything like this, because that's what all their technologies are built on, is that Fluent UI components.
Okay. Can I ask the duration, how long it took to put this together to this point?
I don't know.
Rough estimate. Nearest
Oh, maybe
order of magnitude.
20 hours.
And I know Josh has something similar on the certified side. He may be on a different call right now, him and Jonathan, because I think they're both not on the call, but something very similar on the certified side. And so, Derek, I know that the two of you have talked about it quite a bit, but I think his is in Angular. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And non-developers, any reason or why we would look at one versus the other? Is it just preference for the dev, or is it there's certain times that a functionality request determines which one would be better?
Main reason I like React is because of that Fluent UI library Microsoft has. Then you already kind of have the look and feel of CRM. You don't have to spend a lot of time on styling.
This has the feel to me of something that I've been seeing multiple times recently in pre-sales efforts. Like, hey, we need this custom coding tool. It seems like something that we should be able to repeat, package, whatever.
Package? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for our capital equipment and manufacturing, this may be a solution that we add in for quote product. I think that's
And
great.
I still don't know exactly what it does, but it's just ringing little bells, and for me, it seems like it's. Do you want to show us something else cool that it does, Derek? Sorry to take away your your narrative.
No, that's basically it, because it's not done yet, but we're gonna have inline editing from a lot of these fields. It's so I was gonna show for setting up, which is the Power App component.
How do you define? Oh, I see. So you can define the groups. You can put whatever products you want into the groups.
Yep.
And could you use this to do good, better, best to package items together? Is that something that you could do? Like, hey, if you choose package A, it'll be this much, or package B, and do that all on one quote.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
Huh. Okay. Because we
so
were
there are main
struggling with
drivers.
this for a roofing company that had this incredibly complex good, better, best upgrades, and we just had no way to really group quote products together. This could do that. Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody seeing this form editor here?
No, I still just see your grid right now.
Oh.
I don't see it now. But I do have one other question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could we templatize a product group so bring in a group from a pre-made template group, kind of like a bundle, right?
Like a bundle? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, do that.
Yeah, baby.
And it looks like there's no rules on this of, you can add in the same product multiple times in different groups, correct?
Right. Yeah. So it's just going off the whatever quote products you have on the quote already. So you can add more products just using the standard new add products window. So you can add whatever you want to it.
So when you add
default
it,
to this
then
empty group here, and then you can
assign it to a different group.
Yeah.
Just by dragging it.
Yeah. Drag and drop.
Allegedly.
Oh, I do like it.
Yeah, is that working? I feel like the group's not changing.
Yeah. Still bugs to work.
Talk about that.
Allegedly.
Oh, sorry.
He said
I was
allegedly.
oh,
This is pretty
So it's,
awesome. Though.
I thought I was just missing something with my eyes. I didn't mean to call out or.
Yeah, don't believe
it
your eyes.
refreshed. Just ignore where they are. Just notice it refreshed. So it's nice about the Power Apps component is that you can just specify a view you want, so you don't have to in your code. You don't have to hard code what columns you want to display. You can just grab them from your view. With the grid too, we can also pass in. It's like in my case, I need the quote group that the quote product was in and the quote it's in, but I didn't want to have those show up in my grid. So you can add some properties to your data set from the code and then map those fields without having to include them in your view columns. One thing you can't do if you're doing a data set Power Apps component is you can't have data set you pass in and then additional fields from the record. So in my case, I need like this profit factor field, freight terms field from the quote, but I can't pass those in, unfortunately. So I'm gonna have to do some workaround to get that data. I'm just retrieving the quote. So it's just something to be aware of for all the developers.
All right. Derek, should I go?
Oh, Josh
So-
is on now.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
Derek, how
Meeting.
close is that to being packaged or demonstratable or?
I should finish up the inline editing and apparently fix the drag and drop.
Okay.
Other than that, though,
Okay.
So Derek showed you what to do, and I'm gonna show you what not to do. Okay. No, just kidding. It's basically the same control. Ours is a little bit different in that he's using the out of the box control to create a product. We built a product search control because the customer wanted it. They wanted an ability to be able to search a product by multiple fields, parameters for that table. Once that's done, once it's filtered, it has sorting capabilities. You can add the product, specify the quantity, and that adds it to the code details. We've added groupings. This is bundles, by the way, bundling. And then if you want to group a product, by default, we create a group, and then my drag and drop capability is this way. So basically the same control, but multiple experiences. They wanted an ability to basically generate different GPMs and total pricing based on labor, materials, and chargeable items. So you can basically do that as well. And that applies to all the code details within the group. You can also view the product with the new pop modal within Dynamics and view the product details. And as far as control is concerned, it's basically the same, except all of it is inline. I don't know if he's added bundling, but my drag and drop is a separate component. That's it. Thanks.
I know Josh kind of glossed over it a little bit, but when Jonathan was showing me this particular client has, specifications that, if they want to adjust pricing based on the margin they want to make, right? Like that's what he was showing of, hey, this currently this total amount on the quote is, 5,300, but, I need to make 60% gross profit. He can type in, 60% on labor, and it'll go back through and adjust that price on each line item that's designated as labor. So there's other editing capabilities that this particular client has asked for, but again, it makes it so that like bulk updates can be done on the quote, which is pretty cool. All right. And this is Angular, right, Josh?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Questions for Josh and or Derek? Okay. Beautiful. Well done. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Thanks,
Okay,
Josh.
Logan.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
Is that the
Anything?
internal
Affirmative.
training.crm.dynamics.com?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see it. Okay, so I'm gonna be going over entitlements in customer service. So there's sometimes the entitlements and SLAs get grouped together in things, but just to differentiate the two, the SLAs is more of a it's an agreement like on how fast you're going to respond back or the level of service that's going to happen when you respond back. The entitlements is how many times they can create a new case or how many hours they can have in support. So we'll just go through how to configure that. So it starts at the entitlement template level. So you'll need to be in the customer service hub model driven app, and then you'll want to be in the service management area. And then we can create a new entitlement template. So we'll call this premium support. You can configure the start date and end date that whenever you create an entitlement from this template, it's going to use these start and end dates. But I found for the most case, it's customer specific on like when you actually brought them on, what the start date's going to be, or when. And so it ends up, I end up leaving these two empty more often than not. And then so restrict based on entitlement terms. That means if we say that they can only have 10 cases, if we set this to yes and they try to create their 11th case, it's going to fail. So this gives you control to keep them honest. And then you can associate an SLA to an entitlement. So let's say if the SLA isn't, if they fail the SLA, then you can say don't use this allocation or don't take these hours away. So, so we'll just we'll set this one as yes, but then we'll leave these empty. And then the allocation type is number of cases or number of hours. So when you create a case, when you resolve the case, you have the chance to put in how many hours it took to resolve this case, and then it'll take from there if you select hours. And then the case decrease remaining on, so there's case resolution or case creation, and amount's pretty straightforward. It will decrease the amount on case resolution or when you create the case. Most likely it's going to be case resolution, since people probably aren't going to want to pay for a case that never gets resolved. Okay, so I'm just going to say 10 cases for premium support. So save and close that. Oh, actually wanted to show you a little bit more in here. So we have products as well as entitlement channels. So the products you can define only if the case is associated with this product do we apply this entitlement. And then the entitlement channels is you can decide how many cases they can have of a certain like communication medium. So phone, email, web, Facebook, Twitter, IoT. So we'll say they can have 5 phone. And these don't need to total up to the case resolution because you might end up taking all 10 in web, and we say that you can have 10 in web. But if you take 5 of web, then you have 5 of phone that you can allocate. So, so that's how the entitlement channels are configured. And I'm kind of running through this fast. So let me know if there's questions. Okay, so
You're the last presenter, so you get at least 14 more minutes.
oh, nice.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Entitlements are supposed to replace contracts, right? Is that correct? I saw a warning on a contract form one time that said, "Hey, this is being replaced by entitlements."
How long ago is that?
Last week.
Last week, it was on a project operations sales contract, though, right?
It was the contract entity. I tried to create a new one, and it said, "Hey, this is being deprecated. Use entitlements."
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, you're on the contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
sure on that. I know entitlements have been around for a while, but yeah, maybe they're moving off contracts and only entitlements.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so does anybody else have a question? Yeah. So now we can go and create, let's just make sure I save that. Create an entitlement. So the entitlements are all customer specific. So you can have multiple entitlements for same customer or multiple customers with the same entitlement. It's well, entitlement template, I should say. So here, since we have our template, we can take it from a template. If you don't want to use a template, you can just create a new one. So we have our premium support. And we'll name this, let's figure out which customer I can grab, and then we'll decide what we name it. Well, Adventure Works. So Adventure Works. And then here's start date, end date, since I left those empty, but let's say we're gonna start this today and have it go for a year. One of the cool things with, oh, go ahead.
Question on that. Is there any way to configure the end date to be dynamic? So if I choose the start date, it pops it out 90 days?
There always is with customization, but out of the box now.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So yeah, business rule, handle that, but just out of the box without configuring anything extra. No. So it has the restrict based from the template. But back to these, so the start date and end date, these determine when it actually, so the entitlement right now is in draft state. So if I set the start date to 5 days from now, entitlements will automatically be activated on their start date. So you don't have to go and create a flow or workflow to go and handle that activation. And then end date, it will expire the entitlement on the end date. So it's one of those cool cases where they already have the workflow set up for you. So I'm just going to leave it at decrease remaining, and we should be good here. So we'll save this. So now AdventureWorks has their entitlement, and then the entitlement channels show up. So now let's go and create a new case. So I'm just going to go back to service. Yep.
I noticed that they had 10, but when you looked at the breakdown, you had like 5 web, 10 phone or something.
Yep.
So it's not limiting or doing any kind of math to say, hey, you know, they're over allocated here. It's going to let you use as many of whatever until you use the total. right?
Yes. So yeah, so they're wanting to keep it that way because maybe somebody is going to use 10 web, but if they use 10 web, they can't use 5 phone. So like the total terms is you're not going any past this. But so let's say the web is way cheaper for them to handle. So they're like, yeah, you can have 10 web, but phone's more expensive. So you can only have 5 phone, and then you can figure out what other channels you want to do with the rest of your 5. So yeah, that's mainly how that handles that.
Okay.
So if we go into service in the cases, create a new case. And we'll call this venture work first case. And then we can associate the entitlement. And then I'll just save this case. Oh, I didn't activate the entitlement. 1 second. Okay, now we're active. So if this was set to like tomorrow, then since this is a process that runs daily, then it will activate it. But since I did it for the current day, it didn't automatically activate that. So now we can go back to cases. Oh, I didn't end up actually creating it. So okay. VentureWorks first. Now I'll assign them to this premium contract. Entitlement, I mean. Way to go, Postma. Now I'm saying contract. Okay, so now we have the entitlement associated, and then you'll see at the bottom that it shows you have entitlement and you have 10 active. If this was just like a 2-column, this would be a little more detailed with information about the entitlement, but since we're a little smallish screen, then we have that. But here, now that we have the entitlement associated, there is a do not decrement entitlement. So if this ends up being, oh, sorry, this is my bad, you can say do not decrement. Then when you go and resolve this case, it's not going to decrement the amount of cases that they have available. Now, if you go and resolve the case and you forgot to decrement, you can always go back, reactivate the case, and then resolve it. And then click the do not decrement and then resolve it again, and your numbers will be correct. So we'll just say fixed it. And then here's where the total time, if you selected the other option, would come into play. So now we have the case resolved, and you'll see the entitlement has been knocked down to 9 cases left. So now we'll create another case. Oh, actually, let's go back to the entitlement since I have 4 more minutes to play with. Can go to the, sorry, not the entitlement, and we can make this the default. So if you set it as default, when you create the case, you don't have to actually set the entitlement field, as long as like you don't have the products defined on the case yet. But if you, depending on the origin you have selected, then it will allow it to default if you have the right entitlement channels applicable. If you don't have any entitlement channels, it's just going to let you do anything. So let's go back to case. Now we're going to do the second case. And it's not associated yet, but once I hit save, then it automatically grabs the default. And then this time I selected phone. So once we resolve this case, the entitlement has been decremented. And if we click into it, we'll see we only have 4 more phone entitlements available. So that's all about entitlements. Any questions?